story of a man whose thoughts can kill his enemies. The Unseen Force. Episode 1. My name is Fred Benton. My father Benton was a very big landlord, and every luxury of life was available to us. Despite this, I was so unlucky that I was not blessed with my mother's milk. She died when I was born. When I was 6 years old, my father also died, and I was left alone in the world. Loneliness does not mean that I didn't have other relatives and friends. All of them were. My uncle Chester, as soon as my father died, he proceeded to occupy the land. I was a naive child, who did not know the world outside my home and village, how relatives deceive in the name of love. They took all the land and property documents in their custody and leased the land and brought me to the city. The environment of my uncle's house was against my mood. My aunt used to hate me and scolded me for being ignorant. Her children also followed in her footsteps and scolded me like a low-caste boy during play. Grow near them. Even though uncle was sitting on my wealth and property like a snake, but he often supports me. One day he said to his wife, "I have explained to you 1,000 times that do not treat Fred as an employee, pamper him like a son. If he goes to his father's sister, then the wealth of the lands will also go with him." I was also listening to them outside the door. Auntie replied, "When do I want the boy to leave here? But what should I do with his eyes? It's terrifying to see. You probably haven't noticed. Look carefully, there is a strange gleam in her eyes. When he looks at me, I'm shocked. I'm telling the truth." After listening to my aunt's words, I touched my eyes and started thinking if there's really a demon inside me. At that time, I remembered the words of my late father. "My son's eyes have a natural glow, the light of angels. He will win the hearts of his audience." I got up and came to another room and stood in front of the mirror and started looking at own eyes. I was unable to understand whether my eyes had the sparkle of goodness and love or the sparks of evil and hatred. Whatever the truth was, I was happy to think that my aunt was afraid of my eyes. She was older than me and used to abuse me. So, I couldn't abuse her in response, so I couldn't turn around and raise my hand against her when she hit me. But naturally I got some kind of weapon with which I could scare her. I began to practice the same thing in my mind. Now it often happened that whenever I came across my aunt, I would start looking at her with sharp, piercing eyes, as if she was terrified. I started getting scolded. One day uncle and aunt beat me a lot, and that day I could not bear it. Then I went to my room and started packing. No one came to see what I was taking out of this house. I picked up whatever I thought was necessary for me, and then after an hour I took my stuff. I left this house forever. I went to my paternal aunt. Paternal uncle had passed away. My paternal aunt very poor, and she used to teach children in a school. Her daughter Emma was almost my age, and she sewed the clothes of the local people. Both mother and daughter were living with dignity by working hard. My aunt was happy to see me. When I told the details of leaving the house, she started cursing and abusing Uncle Chester. She lived in a 2-room of mud house. They reserved the room for me to stay. I came here thinking that now I will get a job and not be a burden on them. At that time, I told them that I would be their son and pay the expenses of this house. She got angry after hearing this. She gave a little explanation and a little scolding and announced her decision that I have to continue my education. We kept talking till late at night. Then I went to sleep in my room. After lying on the bed I could not sleep. Many thoughts were running in my mind. My uncle's tricks had taught me to think beyond my age. I was seriously thinking that what should I do to take away my right from them? Where should I go? Which people should I get support? Everyone's support was expected. But my uncle understood the fact very well that towards me no one will go to the court for litigation because all my relatives were poor. How can I hire a lawyer? My paternal aunt was carrying my burden more than her position. I got admission in college on her insistence, but my mind was confused. Many times I thought of killing this scheming uncle and exterminating his children along with him so that his posterity would end, and there would be no one left to benefit from my wealth. but in this way I became a criminal. I was going and I was not getting my rights. At the same time, I thought many times that I would somehow get some occult power through which I could get my land and property from my uncle. It is human's nature that when he does not find the straight and right path to success, he takes the wrong path. To become the richest person in this world. I also started thinking in this way. I felt as if a lava of revenge was boiling inside me. Finding no way, I wanted to learn some such mysterious knowledge that would make my enemies bow down in terror at my feet. These were childish thoughts, but as was my habit, I fixed my eyes on what I saw. And the one who thought, fixed his attention on that idea. According to this habit, my attention became fixed on the idea that I should acquire something, that is, acquire some mysterious knowledge. I wanted to learn something by which my uncle would come under my influence and hand over all the lands and property to me easily. One science is hypnotism by which I can make them my slaves. One science is telepathy. Through telepathy I could read into their minds. There was no teacher or leader among my acquaintances who taught such sciences. I started to read and learn these sciences by buying books of this series from the market. Those books took me to a new point of life. It is true that complete knowledge is not obtained from books alone, for this one has to be guided by the observations and experiences of a great scholar. But these books definitely benefited me so much that I understood and learned these sciences. Went through the initial stages of those who are interested in hypnotism and telepathy cannot advance in this field without developing attention, and since childhood I was used to focus attention and the power of thought on one point. So, I did not face any problem during the candlelight exercises. At night, when it was quiet and there was no fear of anyone interfering, I would light a candle in my room and sit facing the north and watch the glow of the candle. During the candlelight exercises, I would only concentrate on the idea that a magnetic force was developing in my eyes, that I could hold anyone I wanted under the grip of my gaze. Although I should not have thought such aggressive things in the first stage. But I was forced by my circumstances. During this exercise my enemies were in front. Then gradually I controlled my enthusiasm and emotions and started observing the candle very calmly and seriously. Now I used to keep my eyes fixed on the burning flame and say in my heart, whatever light is in this bright flame is falling in my eyes. For several months, this exercise continued without interruption. Initially there was a lot of disappointment because I started to think of myself as an expert in hypnotism. Thinking of myself as an expert I would stare at others from time to time and try unsuccessfully to bring them under my influence. I realized that if it were that easy to learn, there would be thousands and millions of hypnotists out there, and that it takes patience, self-confidence and hard work to become expert, so I got it right again. And instead of showing off my magnetic eye to others, I just sank into myself and began to muse on candlelight. I can't see anything except this warm glow, so I started to feel the heat. At first I was scared by the heat creeping in my body, then gradually I got used to it. Now that small flame of the candle touched my mind, landed in my eyes and felt emitted from my eyes. These were my feelings. I didn't know how far I had succeeded in practice. By the way, in my college, they often said that my eyes had developed some strange attraction. Now no one talks to me with eye contact. During the conversation, the eyes of my interlocutor used to lowered. After some time I went to another city to meet my uncle. After spending one night there, it was cold in the morning and it was so cold that my teeth were chattering. In front of me, an old man was sitting on his seat. His hair, beard, and face were all white. His body was weak, but his face was very fresh. He was sitting with a thin sheet in which there were countless colors were in the patchwork. The window which was facing us was open. I started to close it, then the old man extended his hand and said, "Let it be, son, a cold wind is coming, it is getting cold here," and the old man was enjoying the cold air. I thought in my heart that this is an insult to a young person like me, that I am shivering with cold and this old man are enjoying the cold. Are he made of fire? The old man smiled and said, I am not made of fire. I am just like you. My eyes widened in great surprise. The old man answered what was in my mind. Wasn't it a great surprise? That they had heard what I did not say on my tongue and gave a reasonable answer to it. I was looking at him, he was looking at me, his eyes were deep. I felt those eyes wanting to pull me towards them, but can't pull, can't bend towards itself, maybe because I have gone too far in candlelight exercise, he said with a long nod. My guess turned out to be correct. You have indeed practiced using candlelight exercise. I sat down straight away. I also thought about the candlelight exercise thing silently, but he had heard. I quickly placed my hands on their knees and asked, "Who are you?" It has been read in the books that telepathy is such a knowledge that after learning it completely, its effect reaches the minds of others and they keep hearing what they are thinking. He patted my hand and said, "Your information is correct, old man," I mumbled and said, "I am wandering for such knowledge. For God's sake help me. Give me a pinch from your treasure of knowledge. I will never forget your kindness for the rest of my life." He smiled and said that the knowledge you are getting, you do not yet know how to use it for your benefit. The knowledge of telepathy is a distant thing. Look at you shivering from the cold. You can't think of any way to stay safe. What should I do? He said, "Just sit straight and I will tell you." I sat straight in my place as per his instructions and started looking at him with questioning eyes. He said, "Snow is affecting the weather here. It is cold. It is really unbearable and, in this condition, I have kept the window open. You spread both your palms and look at them carefully." I spread both my palms in front of my eyes and started looking at them carefully. The old man was saying, "Now put your knowledge to work and establish the imagine that there are lighted candles on your palms and your palms are being warmed by their invisible heat.